Hear that? Holy crap. I'm pretty sure that's a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. Welcome to Season 2. Welcome to another Season 2 episode of Bigfoot Campfire Stories. Well, Pete and Max are avid hunters in the Mendocino National Forest. Each year they hunt deer, wild hogs, the occasional black bear, but on this hunt they discovered a home area unlike any they had encountered before. Let's hear their story. It was Saturday morning, the third week in October. Deer season had been open for about 20 days, and so far we hadn't shot a thing or even been close enough to take a shot, but we're leaving extra early in the hopes that we would get it done and be back before dark. Hole Mountain was about halfway into the park, and we should reach the bottom of it just before dawn, which has been successful for us before. So Max put the metal to the pedal, and down we went. 90 minutes later, we were there. We parked on the side of the forest road and set off just as the sun tipped its hat to us for the beginning of the day. We had walked the game trail for about 90 minutes when we came to this little clearing that led to a meadow with a small lake on the other side. We had a set of two-way radios with us, so we decided to put about 90 yards distance between us and take different angles on that small lake. We're not one just to take a deer, but it kind of needs to be the right deer. It was about 8:30 now, and lots of the animal activity had picked up around the lake. There were some resident ducks and a bunch of rodents just running all over the meadow. A small doe wandered in by herself, and we both had a shot, but neither of us thought that it was the right shot of the day. The morning had beginning to slip away from us, and it was starting to push towards 11 a.m. when I saw a really nice 8-point buck traveling with a few does come into view. Well, I radioed over to Max and told him that I was going to take this buck, and his reply was that he didn't have a shot, so go ahead. Well, I steadied myself against a log that I'd been posted up on all day. I lined up the perfect organ area shot and smoothly squeezed the trigger. Boom! Perfect shot. The buck jumped straight up in the air and then collapsed just out of sight at the edge of the lake. Max, hearing the shot, knowing that I don't miss, called on the radio to see if we had to track it, and sure enough, he was meeting me halfway through the lake with the processing gear in hand. We hunt for the meat, so we process most of it right there in the woods and leave the rest for the scavengers, helping to feed the local wildlife. Well, the closer we got to the lakeside, the more we heard these strange sounds. They sounded like grumbly whooping sound and a loud thud against a tree every so often. Well, Max and I approached the shot site and found where the buck had laid down after jumping, but it was no longer there. A few tufts of hair and a bunch of blood, and then some drips of blood leading off. Max thought maybe he got up and was wandering around hurt, so now we do have to go and find it. We started walking across pattern back and forth trying to locate the body, just moving in the general direction of the blood drops. But both of us realized we're headed closer to whatever these weird noises are, and we decided it was best to figure out what the sound was and then come back and find the buck. Again and again, a weird whoop and a thud of a branch against a tree and mumbled smacking. Not words, but nearly sounding happy. Well, finally, as we rounded a large down tree, we could see in front of us what surely only very few people got to see in a lifetime. 3 very large, very hairy beings, creatures, hanging together near a small waterfall, and they were eating the organs out of our buck. Sure enough, laying there at the feet of these creatures was the buck I had shot at the lakeside. As Max and I were closing in on the one shot, one of the creatures must have found it and brought it back here to share with the others. The first one was obviously male. He seemed to be dueling the meat out as he would reach down and rip out a large piece of meat covered in still warm blood and lay it on the log, as one of the others would run over and take it. He seemed very strongly built, powerful at the chest, with oddly long arms and thicker hair than the others, and just purest of black. The other very large one seemed maybe a foot smaller than the last, but by no means were these small creatures. They were hulking, and I was very afraid inside. Not sure if it was female or not. No visible breasts were evidence, but no male appendage either. It got most of the lion's share of the meat put out by the male. The middle one seemed to be a lighter brown in color, but still very dark. Its face matted in the blood of the deer meat, and all of them smacked their chops, just savoring the taste of it all. The smallest of the three must have been a child of some sort. Its hair was far less dense, and its head was more rounded than pointed like the others. It, too, was still very large, though. I would have guessed it still over 6 feet. When it stood up tall on its hind legs, you could tell that these were not bears. These looked like giant monkeys from the zoo, with much longer legs and no balance issues. These were most definitely Sasquatch of some type. Of course, all of my life I've heard stories, but never enough to convince me of this until here and now they are right before our eyes. All Max could do was squeeze the living crap out of my arm in amazement of what we both saw. Being downwind from the creatures, you got a hint of something foul on the wind, enough to make it uncomfortable, and we quickly didn't want to be discovered, and we backed away after just a few minutes of watching these incredible animals. Max and I retreated back quickly and quietly. We got maybe 30 yards from where we had been, and we heard a very loud howl of some sort and a whoop call, and then we could hear the creatures making their way through the woods the other way. As both of us had seen exactly as the other, there was no doubt, other than what exactly we should tell others about what we saw. As we walked the 90 minutes back to the truck, we really didn't say much to each other besides Mac trying to come up with some other explanation while beginning to sit and saying, well, maybe it was, and then a quick, nah, Bigfoot. We saw Bigfoot. Well, when we got back to my house, my wife looked at us both and asked, well, did you get one today, fellas? To which Max just said, well, we shot and lost one. It happens. Max finished his beer and walked out to drive home. It's been 2 weeks and I still haven't heard from Max. I guess it'll take him a little bit more time before he's ready to go hunting again. These guys heard the stories and still didn't believe. It's always fall fun and games until the Bigfoot actually show up. Thanks for watching. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.